Hi everyone, Charles Vamadeva here again with another episode of Real Estate Sizzle Talk, and I'm here today with three top realtors, and these guys are busy. They know what they're doing. This is Israel Perez, Verlin Sanciangco, and Mike Marchena. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Charles.
And we're talking today about an epidemic, right, which is sellers overpricing homes. So you walk into a listing appointment, and clearly that seller, Mike, has got an unreasonable figure in their mind, very ambitious. It's not going to sell at that price. What do you tell that seller?
I tell them the truth. I'll just go over, the comps that I got for the area. I'll tell them what their house is actually worth. I'll tell them the pitfalls of why you shouldn't list your house, overprice it, and the benefits of actually pricing it correctly, and sometimes even just a tad bit under market value. Because my goal is to sell your house for top dollar, so I'm not going to tell you to list it for less than what it's actually worth. But I'm definitely not going to let you, or I'm not going to advise you to list it overpriced because you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Are you saying that you would walk away from that listing if that seller was not going to give?
So if the seller was completely unreasonable and the price was way over market value, I'll walk away. And I've done it in the past. And what's happened in the past is I'll have them go list with another agent, and then 6 months later they call me and I have to come back and then I sell their house, and I end up getting them top dollar and usually more than what they ended up reducing the price down to.
What's the temptation? How real is that temptation to just take the listing anyway and hope the seller's going to learn their lesson and have that rude awakening? Is that a real temptation to deal with as a realtor?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's real tempting to take on any listing because I mean we're here to get property sold, for our buyers and leave a good impression with them until we get referrals. So I mean when we wanna what's the word I'm looking for? We want to please our clients and our sellers and try to get them the price that they're asking for. But, like going to back what Mike was saying is we just have to set realistic expectations.
Yeah. Does overpricing homes hurt the market?
It does definitely hurt the market. The longer the property stays in the market, what happens is the less likely it would actually sell for the asking price.
Why is that?
Because the longer the property stays in the market, there's questions about what's going on with this property.
What's wrong with it?
And the new ones coming in are most likely are getting the most attention, and that affects the valuation of the.
That's an interesting point. Is it true to?
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, of course.
Also, what happens is, let's say for instance, the seller gets lucky enough to have a buyer's agent show a buyer the property, and they're not doing their job correctly, they're not actually running the numbers on this property, and they say, hey, let's go ahead and throw a full price offer to these guys so we can get it accepted, right? What's going to happen is you're going to open escrow, and then when the appraisal comes in, the transaction is either going to fall apart, not probably, it's going to fall apart because nobody's going to pay $25,000 or whatever it is over actual value, the appraised value.
Right. So who actually dictates what that property is worth? Is it the buyer? Is it the seller? Is it you, the agent? Who dictates what that property is really worth?
The appraiser.
The appraiser
is the one who dictates it at the end, but in the beginning, it's going to be us.
Well, ultimately, I mean, the realtor educates the clients and then sets the starting price along with the seller, and then you guys agree on the price of what you're listing. But ultimately, the buyer is the one who's going to dictate what he's willing to pay for that home.
If I was a buyer and I saw a property on the market for 90 days, 120 days. I would feel like there's something undesirable about that property. I would be suspicious. Is that true to say?
It is, but I want to go back to the last question you asked. The market dictates the price. Anyways, okay, so going forward with your 90, 120 days.
So is that true to say? It looks like there's something wrong with this and you shy away from it even though you're a well-qualified buyer and the price might come down to the range that you're comfortable with and market supports, but you've got this stigma, you've got this thought in your head, there's something wrong with this property, I don't want it.
I mean, for sure. I mean, all the buyers that when I show listings and they run across a listing that's been on the market for a while and we go to see it and then they love the property, if it's been on the market for a while, I'm not going to advise them to offer full price because obviously it's been sitting there for a while. So then I'm definitely going to come in under than what they're asking for.
Right. So what's happening is if it's been there for a long time, most buyers are inclined to offer the lowest possible price on the property, thinking that the sellers are in desperation, looking into an offer.
Which hurts the seller even more. And I guess the argument there would be if they had listened and
Yes.
listed it at a fair price, they wouldn't have waited that long.
Well, here's what happens psychologically, because this happens with me all the time when I'm doing my comps on a property for a buyer. I call my buyer and I go, well, it's been on the market for 90 days now, so they're probably desperate. So we could go ahead and throw in a lowball offer and see if we get it, because they haven't been getting anything else.
How do you detect if the seller's just quote unquote testing the market? Some sellers do that, right? How
Yes,
do you detect that? They
yeah.
don't really want to sell. They don't have to sell.
Right.
They just want to, and they put you through all this hoopla. How do you detect that up front?
Well, it's basically what they do is they try to overprice their property and hoping that, hey, it's a negotiating table, so we may get a lowball offer. So overprice the property. So if we do get a lowball offer, we may hit the target that we. That
And that
we
usually
would want.
backfires. That usually doesn't work.
It does.
Can I say this as a lender? I think this is true of realtors in general. If I saw you had a property listed for 90, 120 days or worse, I would almost subliminally begin to question your competence or your ability. Is that true to say? Does it make you look bad if that home's been in the market and it's really not your fault because it's overpriced, but then you allowed it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it makes you look bad as a realtor to have something sit for such a long time. And, sometimes it's something that we can't control because, we have to get the seller to agree at a certain price. So if they're not willing to reduce, then there's very little that we can do.
Interesting.
Well, what'll happen is if you're not getting at least a few offers, if not multiple offers, in the first week, especially in the first 2 weeks, it's going to ride out. So I always tell my seller like this. I go, look, if you list it at the price that I'm advising you to list it at, well, if they're being unrealistic, I tell them, if you list it at the price that I advise it to be listed at, and let's just say, for instance, we get list price and you're not happy with that, you don't have to accept it. But at least I can dictate and tell, or actually the offers will dictate where this price should be, because if we're getting offers and we're getting overpriced offers, then the pricing strategy worked. But if we're not getting any offers at all, you give me no leverage to work with and I can't drive your price up.
And also,
What I do sometimes is I would, for somebody who's unrealistic, sellers, I would give them that opportunity to price it to where they want it. But we have a signed agreement, a future price reduction that when it hits day 21, we're pricing this property according to market value, what I thought it should be priced correctly.
Do you get a lot of resistance to that?
I actually don't.
No.
So let's price it for this price, but hits day 21, MLS, reduce the price.
In closing, guys, last question. What are two of the reasons that sellers overprice homes? I mean, obviously they want more money. And I think, what are some of the reasons they overprice them?
I mean, one of the reasons is they could have just bought the property like a year, 12 months ago. So the equity hasn't built up to where they can net a profit. So they might just not want to take a loss, or they just put too much money into the house improving it, and they're trying to recoup that money. And that's our job to educate
So they
them.
almost have to force to overprice the home to
Right.
make the
Well,
sale.
another situation would be if they're trying to roll that equity to another property, and there's not enough equity to get the price down on the next property to a monthly payment that they're going to be happy with. They have to. They're probably strategically trying to make enough money off of it, but they're just shooting themselves in the foot. And then earlier you asked about the. There was a question you said about the sellers testing the market.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I walk away from these people. Because I don't have time to test. I only have time to sell.
So, good information, guys. Thank you for the insight and the expertise. If you guys are anyone watching this looking to sell your home, you got some great choices here. Their contact information is on the screen. Israel, Verlin, and Mike. You watch another episode of Real Estate Sizzle Talk, and we'll see you on the next one.